See, now, with what we've learned, hopefully you're getting this. There have been catastrophes. The catastrophes have been very real. They're nothing that's just some kind of wacko New Age speculation, but have been scientifically confirmed over and over again. Secondly, the possibility that there have existed advanced, scientifically sophisticated cultures on this planet who have been completely lost to history. The reason they've been completely lost, we now know, obviously, is because we, even 20 or 30 years ago, did not appreciate the magnitude of these catastrophes that have constantly reoccurred throughout the last couple 100,000 years that we humans have been occupying this planet. So, as a result of these constant repeated catastrophes, going back, like in this one here, you've got these Heinrich events, which each one of those represents the onset or the termination of an ice age. Well, the onset and termination of an ice age, as we now know, involves temperature changes of up to 7 to 10 degrees Celsius, which is 15 to 18 degrees Fahrenheit in less than a decade. Well, I can guarantee you that if we underwent a climate change of 8 to 10 degrees centigrade in the next 10 years, it would essentially eliminate what we think of as modern civilization. I mean, our whole infrastructure would collapse. We would not be able to keep it. It would create so much confusion and consternation and social dislocation that essentially this whole network, this interrelated network that we've created that's now linking the whole planet, would essentially be rendered extinct. People would still exist. People would go on. But we wouldn't be living in an advanced culture, because the advanced culture is totally dependent upon a stable climate. You take the stable climate away and the agricultural infrastructure collapses, all the rest of it goes with it. So we know scientifically now why there could have been scientifically sophisticated cultures that have been lost. Okay, now as a corollary of that, there have been, shall we say, esoteric orders or brotherhoods or mystical organizations, however you want to think of them, whose main purpose has been to preserve and transmit these traditions of this lost knowledge. Not only the knowledge, the scientific knowledge that was within the purview of these cultures, but also the knowledge of the great cycles and the great events that have caused the termination of these cultures. In other words, here they are preserving this body of lost knowledge. Well, part of it is, why is the knowledge, or how did the knowledge become lost in the first place?
Don't you think that some of these civilizations are smarter in a lot of ways than we are, even scientifically? I mean,
oh yes,
really,
and because, and Elizabeth, the proof of that is that we're here. We have not become an extinct species. The reason we haven't become an extinct species is because we humans have intelligence, we have foresight, and with all of the, when you start looking at all of the traditional accounts of these great events, if we turn to the most familiar one, the Judeo-Christian tradition, it's the same as what you find the world over. You have one man or family or one group that is singled out, and for whatever reason and by whatever source, they have access to knowledge that somebody else doesn't have. They have access to this certainty that something is going to happen, and the rest of humanity either doesn't have the knowledge or they don't care. It's the same in the traditions of the Hopi Indians. It's the same in the traditions of the Greenland Eskimos. It's the same in the traditions of the Mayans. It's in the Greek story of Deucalion. It's in the Sumerian story of Xisthros and Utnapishtim. It's in the story of Noah. It's in all of them. The idea that there is this catastrophe, but it is known to some. And because that group, that favored group or those favored individuals know what's happening, what's coming down, they are able to essentially bridge the gap between one world age and the next world age. And they serve a very special function within the whole human role on planet Earth, is that the Noahs and the Deucalions and the Utnapishtims, they bridge two world ages. They're born into one world age, but they conclude their life in a whole new world age, a whole new order of nature that has been inaugurated by these great shifts almost certainly is the result of cosmic events. So, as a corollary of this, then we have the idea that this information has been preserved and it's been transmitted. Much of it has been lost due to neglect or through deliberate suppression or just through the vagaries of time, but a lot of it is being rediscovered, and the gaps of the ancient knowledge are being filled in by modern scientific discoveries, verifying that, yeah, floods on a biblical scale have actually happened. Not that the whole world has been uniformly covered in water, but floods on a scale such that the survivors could easily conclude, yeah, the whole world got wiped out. The whole world got wiped out. Their whole world got wiped out, but obviously there were places of refuge, and that's another part of the traditional knowledge that's handed down, is this knowledge of the places of refuge. And there were places of refuge, and science is confirming that there were places of refuge on the planet. Places where you would have probably wanted to be during the last transition between the world ages. And that is where you can see the great animals have survived. The great Pleistocene megamammals, where did they survive? In sub-Saharan Africa. You know, in the eastern highlands of Africa. Would have been a place where somewhere within there was a refugium, to use the ecological term. A place where species could survive and then recolonize or repopulate the vast ecosystems that had essentially been depauperated by these events.
Now, if we look at Washington and look how it was built, obviously there's a great influence from the Masons. So with our government, I would assume they have the knowledge too.
What you're bringing up is a question I wrestle with. I go back and forth thinking somebody somewhere, if me, a guy, of course, I'm an obsessive, dedicated researcher, and I've been doing this for 3.5 decades. Okay, so I've put 2 and 2 together. Now the question is, and I've gone into Masonry. I've been a Mason almost 30 years. So having probed into the mysteries of Masonry, what I've convinced myself of is that even though that knowledge is there, I haven't met anybody yet who's figured it out. But what they say about the whole way Hermetic traditions work is that there's the secret has layers. And in order to penetrate, you can't get to the inner layers until you've penetrated through the outer layers. And each layer provides the protection for the next layer. And you got to get through that layer to get to the next layer. But when you get to that second or third or fourth layer, there is something there to confirm that that is in fact the next level of the secret. That's how the whole thing, the whole structure is put together.